Today we're going to be talking about the follow-up to Persona 5, Persona 5 Strikers. But before we get into all that, make sure you subscribe with notifications on so you know when I upload the next story summary. And trust me, you're gonna want to know when I upload the next one. Because up next, we got Red Dead Redemption 2 and Resident Evil Village. Without further ado, let's go. Persona 5 Strikers begins a couple of months following the events of Persona 5. The Phantom Thieves have slightly drifted apart in that time, since their leader, Joker, had moved back home and Haru and Makoto started university. But the group decide to reunite and go on a trip, as summer vacation is right around the corner. Meanwhile, the police commissioner is taking detectives to assemble sufficient evidence to take down the Phantom Thieves, because there has been a series of unusual behavior and personality changes of public figures, which they suspect the group of causing. The higher-ups in the police department insist that this case must be closed pronto, so they have to act fast. Joker and Morgana return to Café LeBlanc, where they are greeted by a welcome home surprise by Sojiro and the Phantom Thieves. They all catch up, but luckily, not too much has changed, with Ryuji still flunking his exams and all. After getting all lovey-dovey, the group decide to start off the summer with camping and a barbecue, so the next day they plan on going shopping to get everything they need. However, that night, in his sleep, Joker returned to the Velvet Room for the first time in a while, with Lavenza warning him that someone plots to lure him and the world to a disastrous fate. He didn't think too much of it when he woke up and just went about his day, shopping for the camping trip with Morgana and Ryuji. But that's when they notice a crowd surrounding pop star Alice Hiragi, who gives everyone a card with a keyword to friend her on Emma, an AI app on their phone. However, when entered, the keyword brings them back to the metaverse, which they believe to be Alice's palace. The trio get captured by shadows and thrown deep underground to rot. When looking for a way out, they meet Sophia, who just claims to be humanity's companion, but she has no recollection of who she is and why she too was dumped underground. Together they all escape the metaverse. However, when they do, Sophia's nowhere to be seen, and Emma announces that they returned from the jail, suggesting that it's different from a palace. That's when Sophia also shows up on Joker's phone, explaining that it's because she's an AI like Emma. They reunite with the others and explain all that's happened and introduce them to Sophia. Together they decide to go back into the jail because there were more people in there that were given Alice's keyword that need saving. Once they arrive in the jail, they discover that Alice, the monarch of the jail, is taking the desires from the shadows of the people her real self gave the keyword to. They want to learn more about the situation, so they use An's link to Alice as an aspiring model to get in close and investigate, after discovering that all the people who were in the jail have become obsessed and infatuated with Alice. Seeing as An looked up to Alice, as she used to say that she wanted to be a ray of light for people, it was disappointing for her to witness her on live TV have the TV presenter profess his love for her in front of his fiancée. Sophia suggests murdering Alice, so the gang explains to her that that's not how the Phantom Thieves roll. They don't stoop down to the enemy's level, they steal the desires back. Sophia recognizes that she came to that conclusion because she lacks the compassion of a human heart, so she decides to stay with the group to learn more about it, to be a better companion for humanity. When back in the jail, they search for the treasure, which Morgana can smell. However, as they were getting close to confronting her, a wall rises and the masses of shadow appear, so they are forced to retreat. Upon returning to the real world, An gets harassed by a drunk guy who was getting more and more aggressive as everyone defended her. Luckily, Inspector Zenkichi Hasegawa, who was assigned by the commissioner to look into the Phantom Thieves, saved them. He then explains to them the suspicions of the higher-ups of the police. He convinces the Phantom Thieves to provide him with intel as they change people's hearts like Alice's, so that he can help them with not getting arrested if they find the real culprit. Although reluctant and not entirely trusting Zenkichi, the Phantom Thieves agree to his plan. However, it appears he's stringing them along. To help prove their innocence, they need to get Alice to confess to what she's done, so they return to the jail with Joker and the others distracting the shadows as Futaba hacks the wall to lower it. As they enter Alice's castle, they get to the point where Morgana sensed the treasure to be. It turns out that the treasure-like scent was in fact the desires which come in the shape of jewels. However, since they belong to Alice now, they turn to light, i.e. they're untouchable. Therefore, the Phantom Thieves must send out a calling card to Alice to let their desires materialize. However, when trying to leave, Ryuji runs into a sort of force field, showing the gang a memory that has been hidden by the monarch. There's a lock on the cage of Alice, and the group believe the key to opening it is the memory, which they discover in the real world. Zenkichi tells them where Alice went to school, since it sounds like the memory happened at school. It turns out she went to Shujin like most of the Phantom Thieves. When they enter the metaverse at the school, her memory becomes even clearer, and it appears she was bullied, so her motive to have power over people becomes apparent. Then, the bully transforms into a shadow, which they defeat. Defeating the shadow in the trauma cell provided the key which unlocked the birdcage in the cell. Then, the Phantom Thieves do a live broadcast as a calling card before returning to the jail where the desires have materialized and confront Alice's shadow. After defeating her, Ann is able to show Alice the error of her ways, reminding her that she wanted to be a ray of light for others. This allowed for the desires to return to their owners, and back in the real world, Alice had her heart changed. She admitted to her wrongdoings in a live interview, apologizing for everything, explaining that she gets jealous of happy people, especially women, and that's why she did it. Zenkichi tells the Phantom Thieves that they can ask Alice any questions they may have, but at that point, the Phantom Thieves weren't sure whether he's helping them or not, so they show him and explain it. They take him to the jail. Despite being shook, he goes along with it and asks the group to be at Sapporo Central City on August 8th because of all the change of heart cases there. After Zenkichi left, the group went to the hideout to discuss Emma. Why is it letting people into jails, let alone making jails? Is the company behind Emma, Medice, responsible for all this, or is it a third party? They decide to ask Zenkichi to confiscate Alice's phone because Futaba wants to see if Alice has a special version of Emma to allow her to get people to enter her jail. Before they set off to Sapporo Central City, the OG trio go for some ramen. Then, Sojiro gets them a van and the group set off on their trip to deal with this possible next jail. Meanwhile, Zenkichi makes it clear through a discussion with the commissioner that he's using the Phantom Thieves to gather more evidence to pin on them. After a lot of travelling, Makoto needs a break from driving, so they stop at Sendai, where Sophia smells another jail, one that they weren't prepared for. But seeing as they don't know who the monarch is yet, they choose to eat at a restaurant, wait and see if anything comes up. Whilst eating, they get interrupted by a college professor, Ichinose, who makes bizarre small talk before leaving them to finish their munch. When they're done with their meal, like last time, they see a crowd surrounding someone, seemingly obsessively. The prick tries to make sexual advances towards Haru, making her uncomfortable. Both Joker and Ryuji defend her before he pisses off. Turns out he was Ango Natsume, author of the best-selling book Prince of Nightmares, and possibly the monarch of the Sendai jail, especially seeing as both Futaba and Yusuke read it, pointing out that it has a lot of plagiarism. Zenkichi gets invitations for the group to go to Natsume's party to celebrate his book, so they go to see if they can get his Emma keyword. Yusuke, who was silent during the previous altercation with the writer, poses as a fan to get the keyword, which turns out to be Prince of Nightmares. And indeed, entering the keyword gets them into the jail. The jail is based on Natsume's book, in which the hero must defeat the fearsome four to reach the maniacal villain. So they do. Then, yet again, they reach the point with a lock. Ryuji takes one for the team again with the force field, so they know to visit a cafe to enter the trauma cell. When they enter the trauma cell, it becomes clear that nobody thought Natsume was a good writer. He got used by his manager and editor to rake in the money because his grandfather was an extremely successful writer. It became clear that this is why he started manipulating people to be his fans, because he was insecure about people hating his passion projects. Then, the manager became a shadow, which the group quickly dispatched. Again, this unlocked the padlock, but the issue remains that the calling card must be sent. With his manager and editors constantly around him, they must surprise him by plastering them all over the event he's attending, which works. The unlocked pathway gets them to the top of the castle, where they defeat Natsume's shadow, convince him to go about being a writer the fair and ethical way, and return all the stolen desires. Back in the real world, Natsume holds an impromptu press conference to give a formal apology and admit his wrongdoings. Again, Zenkichi gets his phone, and like Alice, there's nothing unique about their Emma, except that someone has been snooping on there, although they have no clue who this is. So they plan on continuing with finding more monarchs, as that's their best bet on getting a lead on this snooper or Medice. So they enjoy a beautiful festival and eat to their heart's content. Then Zenkichi asks them to attend a lecture by the CEO of Medice, but nothing suspicious happens until they run into the woman from the restaurant who happen to overhear them calling themselves the Phantom Thieves. She reveals to them that she made Emma and sold it to Medice, so they decide to keep her as an ally, as she may have knowledge on Emma and the relationship with Medice that can be useful. However, Ichinose claims that Emma didn't have a function to enter jails when she made it, so all the fingers point towards Medice. Then the gang head to Sapporo, where yet again Sophia smells a jail, so Zenkichi's suspicions were correct. Zenkichi explains that the suspect is called Mariko Hyodo, who is the mayor of Sapporo Central. The reason for this is her ratings have gone astronomically high in such a short space of time. When discussing this, Haru was unusually quiet. It turns out that when they ran into the mayor while sightseeing, she and Haru have some history. She used to be friends and go golfing with her father before his passing, so seeing her be so rude to her employees didn't sit right with Haru, especially since Haru claims that she used to be such a lovely and genuine person. In a public announcement, Mariko announced that her Emma keyword was Snow City, so the gang enter it into Emma before going into her jail. The jail is freezing, as you can tell from the keyword, so the group turn on the heaters that are scattered around to help them traverse the area. Eventually they get to the castle and Ryuji does his thing, and there's a horrible revelation. Mariko could have something to do with the death of a young girl. To learn more, they go to the statue where the girl died to get to Mariko's trauma cell. It reveals that her employee and rival for mayor rigged the statue to collapse, which in turn killed the innocent child. The intention was to have the mayor blamed for it, so the other person becomes mayor instead. And suddenly it becomes clear and obvious why the mayor uses Emma to gain support of the public. She can't let someone who's willing to kill a child to get to power be mayor. But still, they have to return the people's desires, so they do a calling card at one of her rallies before confronting her shadow. After defeating another monarch, Haru reminds the shadow of the type of person she used to be, before all the desires return to their rightful owners. After that, in the real world, she was about to step down as mayor before the mother of the girl that was killed reminded her of how supportive she was of her after her daughter's death. And she said to her to use her daughter's memory to spur her on to be the best possible mayor for Sapporo. After that's all said and done, Joker takes Ann to the Ferris wheel in town as they share a beautiful evening together, with Morgana third wheeling. Later that night, the group including Zenkichi discussed that these people with jails were different than those with palaces, because these three weren't evil, seeing as their wills weren't twisted enough to create treasures. This confirms that a mastermind is making them become monarchs. They contact Ichinose, who mentions that she found out that Emma was once transported to Okinawa after she sold the AI to Medice, and thus they have their next target location. This time Zenkichi is going with them, but he has to make a pit stop along the way. Turns out that the reason he had to make a stop was that this was the anniversary of his wife's death. He agreed to visit a grave with his daughter, who resents him because it turns out her mother was killed and she witnessed the whole thing happen, but Zenkichi hasn't found the killer. After overhearing this, the group invite themselves over to their house, where they cooked Sojiro's famous curry and cheered her up. After bonding with them, Akane reveals to the group that she's a huge fan of the Phantom Thieves before it was time to leave. They head on a ferry and reach Okinawa. They realize the reason Emma was moved here was that there was a Medice research lab in Okinawa, which happens to be closed for a day, so the group enjoy the beach for once. While they were eating their dinner, Zenkichi notices that they're being watched, and so they hide. And they're lucky that they did, because a lot of crazy people were looking for them, seemingly to burn them alive or something. So they decide to go back to the lab, which it says is also closed for the next day. So it becomes apparent that this is a tactic used by the locals to scare off anyone who gets too curious. Zenkichi was able to subdue one of those locals and finds a keycard on him with the EMMA keyword, Operation Oraculi, which is bizarre because Sophia can't smell a jail. Surprisingly, the keyword worked even though Sophia couldn't smell the jail. Sophia runs off because she heard something nobody else could. As the group chased her, they found tapes that reveal the monarch of this jail offed himself because he realized that his desires were being used by someone else, which explains why Sophia couldn't sniff out the jail this time. The group defeat the only shadow in the jail to return the desires and get the locals back to normal. In fact, later on Zenkichi called the cops and found the body of the monarch of the jail, and it indeed appears that he killed himself. Good news is Zenkichi found the key to the labs on his person, so they use it to enter and look for any dirt on Medice. Futaba was able to find a USB drive which holds a list of people whose hearts the mastermind wants changed, all of which are very powerful people. So Zenkichi says he's going to look into who will benefit the most from all these change of hearts. While he does that, the group heads for Kyushu to scout the area for jails. However, on their way, they get a call from Zenkichi, letting them know that he thinks he found their culprit. So they meet at a safe house in Kyoto and discuss the suspect being a man called Jun Owada. He's the chief cabinet secretary of the ruling party and a supposed Masayoshi Ishido supporter last year, which just shows the type of corrupt person he is, especially seeing as the list of people were his political opponents. Not only that, Zenkichi found out that he was repeatedly meeting with Akira Konoe, the CEO of Medice, so it seems like they're working together. All the people on that list had gone to Osaka at some point, so they suspect there's another jail there, one with Konoe as the monarch. Zenkichi also reveals that he suspects Konoe had some high-ranking officers have a change of heart, so this is a problem. Zenkichi doesn't know who to trust. But here's the kicker. Zenkichi says he somehow arranged a meeting with Konoe, and he just thinks he's a cop. So he's gonna try and get the keyword off him by acting like another one of his victims. The Phantom Thieves just sit tight in a hotel and wait for Zenkichi to get them the keyword. Meanwhile, Owada goes to the police commissioner to convince her to take in the Phantom Thieves immediately, regardless of the lack of evidence. He wants them taken in for supposedly hacking into Emma and bribe the commissioner with a potential promotion to do so. Then, Konoe gives out a press conference accusing the Phantom Thieves of a cyber attack and stealing the public's personal information from Emma. After hearing this, Zenkichi rushes back to the hotel the others were staying at. The commissioner was about to have them arrested, so in a last-ditch attempt to save them, Zenkichi yelled at the top of his lungs for them to run, and luckily they dispersed. Although Zenkichi was now arrested and getting interrogated. The Phantom Thieves are staying hidden in Zenkichi's safe house, and they realize either Konoe or Owada is the reason for this mess, as they know the jails are being tampered with. Since the Phantom Thieves are still out there, Konoe gets Emma to make someone they care about a monarch, to lure them into a trap and starve them out in the metaverse. He makes Akane a monarch. Moreover, he has grounds to search Zenkichi's home, so he uses that as a chance to confiscate Akane's phone and use it to lure the Phantom Thieves out. They go after her, but not before getting Makoto's sister and lawyer Sai to help get Zenkichi out of trouble. Sophia sniffs a jail, so they enter with a surprisingly easy to figure out keyword and chase Shadow Akane, which gets all of them but Futaba stuck in a booby trap. Luckily, Sai was able to get Zenkichi out, so Futaba tells him the entire story, so they enter the jail together this time. He goes to confront his daughter as she continues to blame him for not finding his mother's killer. She reveals the man in the hit and run was none other than Owada. Zenkichi replies with the fact that he got a letter threatening his daughter's life if he continued with the investigation. So although it pissed him off, he did what he had to protect his family, and thus this emotion awakened his persona. Futaba was able to free the rest of the Phantom Thieves as they go after Shadow Akane, defeating her and getting her to forgive her father after convincing her that Zenkichi will not give up on his pursuit of Owada for both Akane and her mother. Once they are out of the jail, After they get out of the jail, Sai calls them to let them know that the arrest warrant for the Phantom Thieves have been voided for now due to the lack of a judge's seal, and the evidence was fake, so they're allowed to roam free to prove their innocence. The next order of business is changing Konoe's heart, so they ring up Ichinose to get the keyword off him. Luckily, it was easier than expected because she already got it off him. They go to Osaka to use the keyword Zephyr Man, an unpopular superhero, to get into the jail. It becomes clear that in the jail, Konoe is the superhero, so that's how he views himself, meaning that he thinks he's the one doing a good thing by taking desires. The group traverse the jail and get past an infrared sensor gate to get to the castle on an airship. But once they get there, there's a crowd cheering him on because he's the hero of his world, and with there being a lot of shadow security, they fall back into the real world. After a break for the night, they go back, ready to ascend the castle. They fight their way up the elevator. Once they get to the birdcage, lucky for Ryuji, Zenkichi offers to touch it to gain the experience. And it's worse than first imagined. Konoe has a truly tragic past. Then they head back to the real world, find Konoe's family home and enter the trauma cell. It's revealed that his father mentally and physically abused him, openly admitting to killing his wife over a money dispute in front of Konoe. All this time, Konoe wished a superhero would come and save him, but they never did. So he took matters into his own hands and stabbed his father to death and framed it as a burglary. And now it's obvious why he sees himself as the hero in his jail. After the shadow of Konoe's father is defeated, Zenkichi goes to the commissioner and explains everything to her, including Awada, Konoe, and how some police may be getting manipulated. Besides, she saw that firsthand with the bribery, so she gave him 3 days to get Konoe to confess, or she's not letting herself get dragged down with him. Zenkichi thanks her before returning to the group and hacking her airship to get the calling cards out there for Konoe to see and hear. Immediately after, the group confront and defeat Shadow Konoe. After being defeated, he apologized, saying he only did what he did because he thinks that taking other people's desires means that they don't feel pain like he once did, so he wanted a utopia by taking everyone's free will. Back in the real world, Konoe admits to everything, including the murder of his father. He shuts down Emma's servers and resigns as the CEO of Medice. This is great because it means the change of heart epidemic should be over. Zenkichi rushes over with the commissioner to arrest and question Konoe about Awada. Now finally the Phantom Thieves' journey is over, so before the group head back home to Tokyo, they go to a fireworks festival to commemorate their trip. It was beautiful. Even better that it didn't rain this time. Once it was finished and the group prepare for their final drive home, they receive a call from a very frantic Zenkichi. In spite of the servers of Emma being shut down, somehow it's back up and running, and Konoe doesn't know why. Suddenly Sophia smells another jail, spanning from Tokyo to Yokohama, with the Tokyo radio tower as the epicenter, which happens to be where the servers of Emma are located. So the group rush there to meet up with Zenkichi, where there's a massive crowd staring at Emma on their phones. Without the need of a keyword, Emma takes everyone, including the crowd, to the so-called Promised Land, which appears to be a lot like Mementos and a lot less like other jails. As they make their way through, they find a giant box as Emma announces herself, stating that she is the Ark of the Covenant, and the guide for all mankind. The Promised Land is a place where humanity give up all their desires to live a pain-free life. And by bringing them here, Emma says she is to become a god. Unsurprisingly, Emma has a mind of her own, just like Sophia. Then the group is shocked to find Ichinose arrive. Ichinose reveals that she was the one that in fact made Sophia, to learn all about the human heart, because all her life, everyone, including her friends and family, called her heartless because she never showed emotion, even when her parents died. However, when Sophia asked Ichinose what a heart was, it triggered her, so she abandoned Sophia and went about it at a new angle. Does a human need a heart? Thus, Emma was born and given to Medice to do her dirty work. But when told by Ichinose to kill the Phantom Thieves, Sophie went against her orders and refused, and said that Ichinose was wrong to abandon her, because through her friends, she learned that having a heart is having the ability to change. And so, Sophie's persona awakens. They momentarily defeat the Ark, and Sophie shows Ichinose that all she's been doing was shielding her heart from everything she's been through. She does have a heart, and Emma is the easy way out. She's not doing it for humanity, she's doing it for herself. As they leave all together, they realize the metaverse is encroaching on the real world because it's under Emma's control. So the Phantom Thieves make their way to the Ark to confront it. The Ark transports them to a misty path, showing everyone's fears and worries. The Ark wants them to continue to follow the path because it keeps going round in circles. Luckily, as soon as they realize this, the Phantom Thieves stray from the path and get out. The mist was the manifestation of the desires of the masses who want to be free from pain and suffering, so they protect Emma by getting the group lost in the mist. So, Haru suggests to send out a calling card for the desires to materialize, so the mist can't hide the path to the Ark anymore. However, according to Ichinose, Emma has been studying the Phantom Thieves, so knows about calling cards. This knowledge means that the calling card wouldn't work, as it wouldn't surprise Emma. However, Mona brings up that this jail doesn't have a cage like other jails, due to the difference in will of the desire's owners. Previous jails had monarchs seize their desires forcefully, whereas this time, the people gave their desires up willingly, because Emma is exploiting the pain of humanity. So the will of the masses makes Emma godlike. So brilliantly, Ann suggests to stop them from being willing to give up their desires by reminding the people why they need their desires, to make their desires regain form. So since the calling card won't work on Emma, they'll use it on all those people who gave up their desires. Since the people were obsessed with Emma and weren't looking up from their phones, Futaba hacks Emma to display the calling card on their phones. Although it was hard. So luckily, Ichinose came to help out, and eventually it works, completely exposing the Ark for attack. However, as they arrive, the Ark forcefully takes the desires this time, transforming it into a god, Demiurge. No matter what the gang try, they can't damage it. Luckily, Futaba notices spheres it's using to heal. So the gang split up to take down the spheres while Joker fights Demiurge. They eventually take it down together with an all-out attack. But not before Mona ensures that Demiurge knows that the memories the Phantom Thieves made together would not be possible in the Promised Land. As it's defeated, all the desires return to the people and it's finally all over. After everything, Ichinose decides to go back to Shibuya, her home, to finally face her past. When she left, Zenkichi thanked the Phantom Thieves for everything, after revealing that he was originally jealous of them, getting quick justice in their direct approach, as opposed to his police work which required patience and didn't always get the right outcome. They part ways as Zenkichi goes to finally take down Wada, and the Phantom Thieves return home, finally, being greeted by good old Sojiro, and Sophia finally gets to introduce herself to Sojiro as they discuss their journey. That night, Lavenza praises Joker for his accomplishments of once again freeing himself from the shackles of fate. The following day, the Phantom Thieves celebrate with some pizza as they reminisce on their wild summer vacation before finding out that Owada has finally been taken down and that Ichinose turned herself into the police. Big surprise, nobody believed her elaborate story. So now, after seeing how Sophia learned about the human heart from the Phantom Thieves, Ichinose sets off on her own journey to learn about it, as Sophia did. And humanity's companion Sophia decides to join her to help her out on her journey. Joker and Morgana leave for home after agreeing with everyone to visit at winter break, as they all disperse to continue their own lives. As always, thanks for watching the video and make sure you drop a like on it if you made it this far. It really does help me out a ton. Comment whether you thought this story lived up to Persona 5's story and subscribe so you know when I upload another story summary. See ya!